The story begins as we meet Ben Reilly, who grew up in New York City and became the Spider, a hero who kept the city safe. The woman he loved, Ruby, once told him that having great power comes with great responsibility. When Ruby died, Ben blamed himself and the Spider, so he buried the mask and returned to a normal life. 5 years later, we see Ben is chasing a man named Addison when a stranger jumps in and knocks Ben aside. The stranger corners Addison, who summons fire in both hands. The stranger shoots him. Addison drops, and a nearby gas tank explodes. Ben drags the stranger clear of the blast and checks his wallet. The man is a private investigator named Patrick Dongle. When Dongle comes around, they realize something. The same man hired them both. His name is Winston. Back at his office, Ben tells his assistant Janet that Addison is dead. A new client walks in shortly after, Mr. Carmody, who suspects his wife is seeing someone. He hands Ben a photo of her and an address where she plans to meet her lover. Ben sits down with his journalist friend Robbie at a diner. Robbie fills him in on Silvermane, a powerful figure who has controlled New York for years and owns half the police force. Someone recently burned his mansion down, but Silvermane walked away. Robbie says the city needs a hero. Ben changes the subject. A memory surfaces, Ruby sinking inside a car, Ben reaching for her, unable to get there in time. Ben meets Dongle, and they agree to dig into Winston and find out who is really pulling his strings. That night, Ben tracks Carmody's wife to a penthouse. He climbs the fire escape, peers through the balcony, and watches her argue with a man inside. The argument turns violent. Ben acts before he can stop himself, shooting a web to restrain the man and giving the time to run. The next morning, Winston shows up at Ben's office demanding to know about Addison. Ben asks for more money and tells him to take it up with whoever is above him. The moment Winston steps out, Ben and Dongle tail him through the city and land on something they did not expect. Winston answers to Silvermane. Dongle sees leverage, Ben sees danger. Back at the office, Janet develops Ben's photographs from the previous night. The man in the penthouse is the city's mayor. When Carmody comes to collect, Ben tells him his wife was alone the whole night and stayed loyal. Then something clicks. The woman in those photos probably is not Carmody's wife at all. Someone hired Carmody to set this up and bring the mayor down. Ben keeps feeling sharp jolts at the back of his head and neck throughout all of this. Janet calls it his sixth sense thing. Since they cannot charge Carmody, Janet suggests they squeeze money out of the woman in the photos instead. Ben meets Robbie again and slides the photo across the table. Robbie recognizes her immediately. Kat Hardy, once a celebrated singer, now performing at a club called The Alcove. They are at a hospital. Robbie shows Ben why he came. A body. James Addison. Dead. Ben knows Silvermane will find out soon, and his first thought goes to Dongle. He leaves Dongle a message and heads to the alcove. Kat performs, and Ben cannot look away. Then he spots Silvermane seated in the crowd. Winston walks in and they go downstairs. In a basement beneath the bar, Dongle is tied to a chair. Silvermane wants to know who sent Addison after him. It turns out Addison may have started the mansion fire himself. Dongle says nothing. Silvermane kills him. Ben goes back upstairs and approaches Kat. He shows her the photographs and asks her to meet him for lunch the next day to talk price. Outside, Kat's bodyguard Flint follows Ben and wants the negatives. Ben refuses. They fight. Ben puts him down, but Flint gets back up, his skin shifting, hardening, becoming sand. Ben throws him off a rooftop. Flint falls. Ben swings back up on his web. He hits Flint again. And this time, Kat rushes in and begs him to stop. Ben hands over the negatives, no charge, and walks away. The next morning, Janet is packing up her things because he couldn't blackmail Kat. Then Kat walks in, and she wants to hire Ben, and notes that Flint has gone missing. Janet brings up Flint's sand transformation, and Kat explains it started a few months ago and has been getting worse ever since. Ben asks if she knows anything more, but she stays quiet and simply hands over his address. Once she is gone, Ben and Janet both sense she is holding something back. On a rooftop across the city, Silvermane briefs Winston about an upcoming meeting at the docks. He tells him to stay sharp. Someone just tried to have him killed. He also gives Winston 2 names to track down, Flint and Ben. Robbie picks up the phone and arranges a meeting with a man named Walters. He hints at a major story he is chasing. Ben starts at Flint's apartment. Digging through the place, he finds an old military photograph, and both Flint and Addison are in it. Before he can think much of it, Winston walks in. Ben slips into the closet. His hat is sitting out on the table, and he reels it in with a web. The movement catches Winston's eye. He moves toward the closet, but then turns and walks out. Across town, Janet visits the crime bureau and pays off an officer for information on Flint. Back at the office, she lays it out. Flint grew up in Brooklyn, racked up multiple arrests, and ended up working under Silvermane. Ben and Janet start to wonder whether Kat already knew about the Addison connection and chose to say nothing. Ben goes back to the alcove and confronts Kat directly. She admits she left out the part about Flint working for Silvermane because she was afraid Ben would walk away from the case. She also comes clean about something else. Silvermane owns the club. Ben decides to stay on the case regardless. As he heads out, Flint watches Kat from the shadows, part of his face already shifting into sand. Ben reaches his apartment and his senses fire immediately. Two men are waiting. He tries to use his webs but nothing comes out. His powers are gone. He hurls a toaster at one of them, but they overpower him and drag him out. Inside the car, he insists he knows nothing about Addison. When a gap opens up, he swings a punch, throws open the door and disappears under a nearby bridge. Morning comes. Ben and Robbie watch Mayor Morris deliver a re-election speech on television. Ben tells Robbie to drop the Addison story. Robbie says he cannot. He needs the money. Elsewhere, Silvermane sends Winston to the docks to check things over before his meeting with a new group of Canadian suppliers. Robbie heads to Addison's home looking for his widow. A friend of Addison's answers and mentions that Addison had been dealing with a sickness. He points Robbie toward the Jeffrey Hotel to find the wife. Back at Ben's office, Silvermane's men show up and point a gun at Janet. After they leave, Ben tries to steady her, but she is done. She quits. Ben drives to a building, poses as a plumber responding to a leak, and gets inside. In the bathroom, he uses a wrench to tear open the wall and finds a small trunk hidden inside. His spider suit is in it. He slips out before the couple living there comes back and discovers the hole. Meanwhile, Robbie sits down with Addison's wife. She tells him Addison began setting fires deliberately about 6 months ago, but she will not say who hired him to go after Silvermane. Across town, Addison's friend tracks down Flint at an abandoned theater and tells him Addison is dead. The two talk quietly about what is happening to their bodies, the changes, the sickness, and how neither of them seems to be getting better. At the docks, Winston inspects the Canadian shipment and radios Silvermane that everything looks clear. Silvermane heads down. Then the spider appears in tears through his entire crew in moments. He gets in Silvermane's face and says it plainly. Ben knows nothing about who hired Addison, and anyone connected to Ben is off limits from here on. That night, Robbie calls Ben with news. The police had a trap ready for Silvermane at the docks, and a large number of his men are now in custody. But because Ben stepped in when he did, Silvermane never walked into it. Ben goes quiet, sitting alone with the weight of what he has just done. Janet comes back to work now that Ben has sorted things over with Silvermane. While they are catching up, Robbie spots Addison's friend in the old wartime photograph alongside Addison and Flint. He heads out to track the man down while Ben asked Janet to look into whether the friend, Flint, and Addison were all prisoners of war. Because their military units were segregated, they could not have served together otherwise. Then Silvermane himself walks through the door. He wants Ben to find out who tipped the police off about the docks and drops a stack of cash on the desk as payment. Ben examines the bills and notices something. Silvermane marks every note he handles. Ben goes to the hospital to visit the officers hurt during the docks raid. He pretends to be from a labor union and works his way through each of them. By the end, one thing is clear. The order for that raid came from Mayor Morris. Robbie is still hunting for Addison's friend, whose name turns out to be Lonnie. While he combs through a stretch of rundown housing, police suddenly move in to clear out what they are calling illegal camps. Things get chaotic fast. Lonnie and Flint push back against the officers, and in the struggle, Lonnie's extraordinary strength is exposed for anyone watching to see. Robbie gets it all on camera. Ben finds Carmody and sits him down. Carmody says no one hired him. He wanted the photos for personal reasons, but a leg injury stopped him from getting them himself. He also dropped something unexpected. It was Kat who arranged the meeting with the mayor, not the other way around. As Ben is leaving the apartment, his senses sharpen and he clocks Winston sitting in a parked car outside. He slips out the back and goes straight to Kat's place, filling her in on where things stand with Silvermane. He pushes her on whether her meeting with the mayor had anything to do with the raid. She gives him nothing. Ben then runs into Winston and offers to sell him the name of the informant. Winston pays him and Ben looks at the bills. Silvermane's mark is on them, but the position is different from the last set. Back at the office, Robbie sits down with Ben and Janet and tells them about Lonnie and what he can do. Janet has also come through. Lonnie, Addison, and Flint were all prisoners of war together. The photograph was taken the day they were freed. Ben pulls Robbie aside. Robbie presses him on what he is keeping quiet about. But Ben says he cannot go into it. What he does say is this: he believes Kat is the one who gave Silvermane up to the mayor, and if that comes out, she is as good as dead. Ben goes to meet Addison's widow Vera. On the way, he picks up a tail and loses them. When he sits down with Vera, he asks whether Kat was the one who hired Addison. Her face answers before she does. But she also reads him quickly. She can see he is trying to protect Kat. And she asks for $1,000 to stay quiet. Ben goes up to Silvermane's penthouse and tells him he is close to identifying the informant but still needs proof. On his way out, he quietly presses a thread of spiderweb over the lock on the balcony door. Robbie meets Howard Walters, the editor-in-chief at the Daily Bugle, and pitches his story on Lonnie and Flint and what is happening to them. Walters takes it, but stops short of offering Robbie his old job back. That night, Ben pays a local orphan boy named Frankie to sit inside his office and pretend to be him, while Silvermane's men watch what they think is Ben's silhouette through the window. The real Ben pulls on his mask and climbs into Silvermane's apartment. Using his senses to guide him, he cracks the safe and takes out $1,000. He is almost clear when a draft catches the balcony door and slams it shut. Silvermane stirs and calls for his guards. They sweep the apartment and find nothing. The spider is flat against the ceiling above them. Across town, Kat gets back to her apartment and finds Flint already there. They fall into each other, and it becomes clear they are far more than employer and bodyguard. They are in love. Flint even agrees to leave the city with her and start over. Then his body gives out. Sand pours through where a man used to be. Broken, he turns and disappears again. Morning arrives. Robbie opens the paper and goes cold with anger. Walters has twisted the story completely. Lonnie and Flint are framed as dangerous monsters, and the police are the heroes. Ben returns to the Jeffrey Hotel and hands Vera her money. She keeps her word and starts packing. Winston and one of his men happen to be nearby and see the whole thing. Ben finds a payphone and calls Kat, telling her to stay where she is. He is coming to her. Before he can move, two men step into his path and tell him the mayor is asking for him. Mayor Morris is direct. He wants to speak with the spider. Crime across the city has been climbing, and he wants out of his arrangement with Silvermane. By the time Ben reaches Kat, she is already gone. A taxi to the train station. He races after her. She denies everything when he finds her, insisting she never informed on anyone. Then Winston and his crew appear and take them both, no discussion, no choice, out to a clearing in the woods where Silvermane is waiting. Vera is already there. Winston forces her to show Silvermane the cash she received. Silvermane looks at the bills, sees his mark, and recognizes the position. It matches the notes he pays Winston with. He puts it together instantly. Winston is the rat. Vera confirms it. Silvermane raises his gun and shoots Winston. Then he looks at Ben and says they are going to need 2 graves. Silvermane and Ben sit together at the alcove while Kat performs on stage. A flashback fills in what happened in the woods. The second shot was not for Ben. It was for Gio, Winston's associate. After her set, Kat stops by their table and keeps things light, but the moment she is alone in her room, she falls apart. Ben spends the rest of the night drinking with Silvermane and drags himself into the office the next morning, still feeling it. Janet and Robbie are already there waiting. Robbie does not linger. He heads straight to Harlem to track down Lonnie. Silvermane pays Kat a visit and wants to know what she was doing at the train station. She tells him she panicked. His behavior had become erratic and she needed to get out. She also covers for Ben, explaining that he was not with her by choice. He was keeping an eye on her at Silvermane's own request because Silvermane suspected she might be working with Winston. At the office, Kat calls Janet. Janet sends Frankie with the message and the boy shows up at Ben's door. Kat wants to meet. Back at his apartment, Silvermane is irritated. The chief of police has missed their weekly meeting. Ben meets Kat at a restaurant and she walks him through everything she told Silvermane. They line up their stories carefully, closing any gaps Silvermane could use against them. Then Ben asks the question he has been holding. Why did she try to have Silvermane killed? In Harlem, Robbie stops to talk to a street vendor about finding war veterans like Lonnie. The man tells him the veterans come through for lunch and the line forms soon. Kat takes Ben to an old theater where no one can hear them. She explains how Silvermane discovered her there years ago and offered her everything: fame, money, a stage. But the cost only became clear later. She fell in love with a man named Thomas. They got engaged. Silvermane had him killed. When she fell for Flint, she saw a way out. A real life, if Silvermane was no longer in it. She had heard about Addison through Flint and paid him to finish Silvermane off. What she does not realize is that Flint has slipped inside the theater and hears every word. Back in Harlem, Robbie spots someone quietly pocketing an extra serving of food and follows him. It leads him to Lonnie. Robbie tells him he wants to make things right. Flint leaves the theater burning with anger and goes straight to Silvermane. Silvermane tells him about Winston being the informant. Flint listens but says nothing about what Kat just confessed. On the walk back, Kat tells Ben she does not want to be alone. He takes her to his place and they sit with a drink while Ben opens up about Ruby. He explains that a man he once put behind bars came out after 5 years looking for payback. The night Ruby died, Ben was sitting in a bar across town. He was drunk and by the time he got there, it was already too late. Robbie brings Lonnie to the office, but the man is guarded and closed off. Janet pulls out a deck of cards and they play for a while. Slowly, Lonnie loosens up. Eventually he talks about what the Germans did to him and the other prisoners of war. Before the conversation ends, he tells them to find someone called Dr. Faber. Silvermane grows tired of waiting and goes looking for the chief of police and Mayor Morris, who are having dinner together at a club. The two sides sit across from each other and neither blinks. No agreements, no backing down. Meanwhile, back at Ben's apartment, the moment between him and Kat is about to cross a line when the radio cuts in. There is a citywide alert. Something is terrorizing people in the Diamond District. Kat immediately thinks of Flint and moves to go to him. Ben stays behind, letting her think he is simply too afraid to get involved. When the mayor and the chief of police hear the news, they understand what it means. Silvermane has made his move. The Spider reaches the Diamond District and quickly realizes the person causing chaos is not Flint. It is someone new entirely, a man throwing lightning from his hands. The Spider has no interest in a fight, but the man attacks anyway. The brawl is brutal, but the man eventually burns through everything he has. The Spider puts him down. The crowd erupts. The mayor steps in for photographs, positioning himself right next to the Spider as though they planned the whole thing together. Kat was in the crowd watching. Something about the Spider felt familiar. She goes back to Ben's apartment and pushes him on it, convinced she knows the truth. He does not confirm anything, so she steps to the window and throws herself out. Ben moves without thinking. Webb shoots from his hand and catches her before she hits the ground. He pulls her back up. They kiss. They head to a diner afterward. Kat asks him to tell her everything. Ben starts at the beginning, the war. A flashback takes us back to an Eastern European town during the German occupation. Ben's unit is sent in to liberate it. Inside, they discover a camp where German scientists have been running experiments on prisoners of war, mixing human subjects with animal DNA and genetic mutations. One of the prisoners, now somewhere between human and spider, bites Ben on the arm. The world goes blurry. In the background, Addison and the others are gathered for a photograph, while Ben fights to stay on his feet. Back in the present, Ben says it took time to feel human again. He admits the real reason Flint's case pulled him in. He wanted to know if something caused their powers because that same something might be able to take them away. Since Ruby died, all he has wanted is to go back to being just Ben Reilly. At the Daily Bugle, Robbie sits across from Walters and pitches a new piece, The Spider Taking Down the Lightning Man. He agrees to hand over the story, but only on his terms. It runs exactly as written. The earlier piece painting Lonnie and Flint as monsters gets a public retraction, and Robbie gets his desk back. Walters listens. Flint tracks down Lonnie and tells him Silvermane has a spot for him too. Lonnie says no. Flint asks him to at least think it over. Ben, Robbie, and Janet gather at the office. Robbie and Janet share what they have pieced together. Every one of the powered men developed their abilities after being treated by a doctor named Alethea Faber. She already knew about the German camp and went looking for the survivors herself. At the alcove, Kat is sitting with Silvermane when Flint and Lonnie walk in. She keeps her composure even as Flint tells Silvermane he will not let anyone lay a hand on him. She steps away to let the men talk. On her way out, Silvermane tells her to find a new band and a younger singer to replace her. Robbie goes to a hospital in Queens and asks for Dr. Faber. He confronts her directly with her secretary Ogden standing beside her about the 4 men who all developed powers under her care. She fires back, telling him there is a reason behind everything she has done. While that conversation is happening, Ben is already inside Faber's office going through her things. He finds a hidden compartment stuffed with files. Then Faber and Ogden return. Ben plays it off as a lost patient and walks out, but not before Ogden gets a good look at him and places his face. He is one of the men from France. That night, Flint and Lonnie force their way into the police station and cut a path straight to the Lightning Man, Mr. Lydon. Silvermane follows them in and offers Lydon a place on his team. Lydon takes the deal. They break his chains and walk him out. Back at Ben's office, he and Robbie go over what they know. Faber's intention was to help the men, but the treatments only woke up mutations that were already buried inside them. Ben asks Robbie to hold the story for one day. He wants to tell Kat the truth about Flint before it goes to print. Robbie agrees. Then Silvermane calls. Ben goes to meet him and walks into a room that now includes Flint, Lonnie, and Layden standing behind the old man. Silvermane's message is simple. Tell the spider to keep out of whatever is coming between him and the mayor. Ben says fine. As he is leaving, Flint stops him and says he knows what Kat did. He is letting it go this once because Ben saved her. Ben goes to Kat and tells her the truth. Every time Flint uses his powers, it may be pulling him closer to the end. She absorbs the blow quietly and tells him to go. But Ben does not move. He tells her that Ruby is gone and Flint is slipping away, and that the two of them, him and Kat, are still here. He brings up Santorini, a dream she mentioned once, and says they should just go. Leave everything behind. She says yes. Later, over breakfast, Janet studies him and knows something has shifted. He tells her about the plan with Kat. She smiles and says she is happy for him. Across town, Lonnie goes to Kat with urgent news about Flint. The deterioration is speeding up. She goes to their hideout. She and Flint argue bitterly. He tells her he would have ended Silvermane for her, but she never gave them a real chance. He walks out. Kat turns to Lonnie and asks if there is anything left to try. Lonnie tells her Dr. Faber believes there is one possibility, the spider. His mutation appears more stable than the others, and she thinks studying it could lead to a cure. Kat goes to the hospital. Faber and Ogden are already packing, ready to disappear. Kat stops them and asks Faber directly if she helps Flint and the others. Can she promise the spider will not be harmed in the process? Faber gives her word. Kat takes a breath. Then she tells Faber that Ben Reilly is the spider. Ben is packing, ready to leave with Kat when a knock comes at the door. It is Ogden. He says he recognizes Ben, though Ben has no memory of him. Ogden tells him he saved his life once, then reaches into his pocket and pulls out a photograph. The soldiers called Ben Freckles back then. He looks so young. Ogden is only 36, but his mutation is aging him from the inside out, and Dr. Faber is the only thing standing between him and the end. He asks Ben to let her finish her work. If Robbie runs the story, it destroys everything, including Ogden. Ben is honest with him. It is too late. Robbie would not stop even if asked. Ogden pushes back and asks why Ben will not even try. Then he says something that lands differently. He knows who Ben really is. He was in the ward the day Ben was bitten. If Ben had not changed his name, Ogden would have come sooner. Ben takes out his spider mask and tells Ogden about his plan. He is leaving the city and starting over. Ogden listens, then pulls out a syringe and drives it into Ben's arm. The world goes dark. Ben wakes up strapped to a table in Faber's private lab. She is standing over him, calm and clinical, ready to study his blood and genetic material. She already knows he is the spider. He threatens her. She tells him he is not the kind of man who kills people. He is a hero, and instructs Ogden to prepare the blood retrieval equipment. A flashback pulls us back to the days after Ben was bitten. He wakes up and notices webbing shooting from his wrist without warning. He tries to wash his hands and finds a canteen stuck to his palm. His body is doing things he cannot control. The military doctors ran tests and found nothing. Back in the present, Faber explains that the Army's only interest was in turning these men into weapons. She is different. She wants to help them. Then she shares something personal. She lost her son. Ogden is that son, and she is fighting to give him back his life. She adds that Ben's friend understood that feeling. She also had someone she desperately wanted to save. That is when it clicks. Kat gave him up. Ben fades again. Test results come back normal. Faber is frustrated but keeps going. Ben comes around and works at his restraints. Ogden comes in and apologizes quietly, then hands him a glass of water. Ben drinks it fast. Ogden asks him why he is running away, tells him there is still time to be something more. Ben says he does not think he is walking out of here. Ogden insists his mother is only trying to save people. Then Faber returns with news. They need to go further. She administers another sedative and they wheel Ben toward the operating room. As he goes under, the mask on his face seems to shift and ripple into the shape of a spider. Under sedation, Ben's mind fractures. He sees military doctors cutting him open while spiders pour from the wounds. The patient who bit him appears and bites him again. Ben runs. Then Ruby is there, and then she transforms into the spider. The images dissolve into fragments of memory until he surfaces again. In the lab, Faber runs test after test. Then something appears in the results. She works quickly and formulates a solution, fills a syringe and injects it into Ogden. His body convulses. The camera holds on his face as the years begin to reverse. The aged, hollow features fill out, and the young man underneath re-emerges. Mother and son hold each other. She says they need to move immediately. Then she says something else. She cannot give Ben the antidote. The only option now is to vanish, no witnesses, no trail. She cannot risk losing Ogden again, not after everything. She says his life was always going to be the cost and raises a gun. Ogden takes it from her hand. He says he will do it himself. He needs to look Ben in the eye, soldier to soldier. But Ben has already been working in the dark. He uses a thread of web to snag the keys and gets himself free. His body is slow. The surgery and the drugs have taken their toll, but he moves. The door opens and Ogden steps in. Ben stops when he sees him. The man in front of him is young again. Ogden tells him he is not here to finish the job. He is here to get him out. All he asks in return is a promise. Do not hurt his mother. Outside, Silvermane pulls up to the building with Lonnie, Flint, and Leiden. Ben and Ogden step into the elevator heading up. Ben senses fire. Robbie's article has already run. It named the lab's location, and that is how Silvermane found it. Ogden gets Ben to street level, then turns around and goes back down for his mother. In the lab, Faber is bottling what remains of the antidote. Silvermane and his men arrive and demand she take them to the other patients. Ben reaches the lab level, changes out of the surgical gown, and spots the antidote. Faber leads Silvermane's group to a lower section of the lab. She shows them the ones who did not make it, patients whose mutations consumed them entirely. She tells Silvermane she can still help the ones who are left. Leiden answers by sending a bolt of electricity into her. She collapses. Ogden rushes in and tries to reach her, but there is nothing either of them can do against Leiden. He kills them both and the surge ignites the lab. Silvermane, Lonnie, Flint, and Leiden get out before the fire takes over. Ben makes it out too, and as he emerges into the open air, it is clear he did not leave empty-handed. He took the antidote with him. Kat sits with the memory of handing Ben over to Faber. Then Silvermane and the others walk into the club. She asks what happened at the lab. Lonnie tells her they found dead soldiers down there. Good men, people they knew. No answers, just specimens in jars, so they burned it down. Straight from the lab, Leiden, Flint, and Lonnie hit the mayor's campaign office and clean it out. The mayor returns to find the place torn apart and his funds gone. He turns on the police chief, demanding to know how Silvermane is just taking the city piece by piece. The chief is blunt, 3 powered men on Silvermane's side, and without the spider, the mayor has nothing. Kat shows up at Ben's office. Janet takes one look at her and knows something is off. Kat asks if Ben has been in. He has not for days. Janet thinks back and says Saturday was the last time she heard from him. She calls the bugle to reach Robbie, and Kat heads out, asking Janet to contact her the moment Ben surfaces. Ben is at a bar, drinking alone and unraveling over what Kat did. A group of men nearby start talking about Silvermane's crew and saying the spider is finished. Ben snaps and fires back at them. They laugh it off as drunk noise. He grabs his coat, walks out, pulls on the spider mask, then walks straight back in and puts every one of them on the floor. Robbie shows up outside. Ben produces the antidote and says he is done. He wants out. Robbie takes it from his hand and tells him plainly, if he truly felt right about using it, he would have already done it. They sit together and Ben tells Robbie about Kat's betrayal. Robbie listens, then asks about everyone else in the city. Ben says the city never cared about him. Robbie says he always did because he understood what being a hero actually costs. Ben says he never set out to be a hero, it just felt good at the time. Robbie pushes harder. Will Ben sleep better knowing he took the cure while Lonnie and Flint are still suffering? He points out that with Ruby, Ben had no warning. This time he does, and the choice is right in front of him. Robbie walks Ben back to the office. Ben sits down with Janet and tells her everything. In the middle of it, he lets slip that he is the spider. Janet does not even blink. A flashback reveals why. She has caught him coming home as the spider, drunk and careless, more times than she can count over the years. She kept quiet because she knew he would only worry more if he thought she knew. Across town, Flint turns up at Kat's apartment. He tells her that when he first met her, he could not believe someone like her existed. Beautiful, sharp, talented, and determined all at once, and he still cannot believe she chose him. Kat tells him he loved her at her lowest and pushed her higher. She loves him. He says he believes her. But without her, his life is hollow. He knows how this ends for him. He has seen what happened to the others. He is not afraid of dying. What breaks him is that she moved on before he was even gone. He promises he will not go to Silvermane, but warns her that once he is dead, there will be no one left to shield her. Back at the office, Ben works out a plan. Cure Lonnie, Flint, and Leiden first, and take the antidote himself. He starts loading syringes when a radio report comes through about an attack in Harlem. Robbie finds Lonnie and tries to talk him down. The spider swings in and drops him. They fight. Ben tries to inject him, but the needle snaps against Lonnie's skin. As Lonnie moves to crush him, Robbie drives the syringe straight into Lonnie's eye. It works. Lonnie's body shifts back, skin, weight, everything returning to normal. The police close in on the spider, but Lonnie steps in and pulls him clear as Robbie drives them away. At Robbie's place, Lonnie rests and recovers. He tells Robbie he is leaving the city with his mother and thanks him for standing by him. Before he goes, he says this city needs men like Robbie just as much as it needs the spider. Word spreads fast. Both the mayor and Silvermane learn what went down in Harlem. The spider has a cure, and both of them want to find Ben. Silvermane shares his philosophy with Cat. Never get comfortable, never settle for what you have been handed. Then he excuses himself, and Cat moves straight to the phone and quietly arranges a meeting. Janet shows up at the theater. She confronts Cat directly. What Ben is was never her secret to give away. Cat says she did it for love, for Flint. She admits Ben is a good man and says she can fix it. If Ben hands over the antidote, she can get close enough to inject both Flint and Leiden without either of them suspecting a thing. Janet returns to the office and gets a call from Hank at the precinct. Every officer in the city has been ordered to bring Ben in. She heads out immediately. Silvermane's men tail her straight to Robbie's apartment. Ben is recovering, but his powers are still gone. Janet tells him about Kat's offer. Ben believes her. He thinks Kat genuinely wants to help Flint. Before anyone can act, Flint and Leiden arrive to collect Ben for Silvermane. Robbie tries to slip the antidote into Ben's coat pocket, but Leiden rushes him out the door before Ben can grab it. At the alcove, Silvermane asks Ben to get the spider to stand down. He cannot have him running around curing his men. Ben says reaching the spider is tricky, then strikes a cash deal and makes the call. Robbie is on the other end, playing the spider. The bluff holds. Afterward, Ben and Kat pour drinks and talk plainly. She could have told Silvermane he was the spider. He could have told Silvermane she was the informant. They agree to keep each other's secrets. Mutual destruction keeps them both safe. Across the room, Leiden keeps staring at Ben, trying to place him. Then it lands. Ben is the soldier who pulled him and Flint out of the POW camp. Silvermane puts it together fast. Ben is the spider. Ben counters that he only saved the spider's life in France. He is not the man himself. Silvermane picks up Kat's hidden gun. He says there is one innocent person in the room the spider would never let die. If Ben is just a private investigator, Kat dies. If he is the spider, he will stop the bullet. Kat speaks first. She tells Silvermane Ben will not save her. She broke his heart. Then she stops hiding entirely and confesses everything. She was the informant. She wanted Silvermane dead, and she did it all to save Flint. Just as Silvermane raises the gun, Robbie walks in wearing the spider mask. Silvermane invites him to join his operation. Ben tries to quietly signal Robbie that his powers are not back yet before he does something reckless. Then Silvermane's men drag Janet inside, caught outside with the antidote. Leiden grabs a syringe and jabs it into the spider's neck. Then Silvermane demands the rest. Leiden stops and questions why Silvermane wants the antidote so badly now that the spider is neutralized. The answer is obvious: control. Lonnie threatens to smash the remaining vials. Silvermane orders Flint to take Leiden down. They go at each other, and in the chaos, Ben's powers snap back. He snatches the antidote, sidelines Flint and Leiden briefly, and swaps back into his suit while Robbie is unmasked on the table. The fight spills into the street. Kat chases Silvermane, gun drawn. One of the two remaining vials shatters during the brawl. Ben pulls two cars together and crushes Flint between them. He collapses into sand. Kat follows Silvermane into a mirror maze. Shots echo off every surface. Then she finds him face to face, and she does not hesitate. Silvermane dies. Kat walks out free. Outside, the spider tries to talk Leiden down, but Leiden is surging with power. Flint reforms and blindsides Ben from behind, driving his face into a car and tearing part of the mask away. Leiden pours electricity into the spider and savors every second, ready to finish it. Then Kat steps out and raises her gun, empty. Leiden shocks her off her feet. Flint turns on Leiden and fights back, but it is not enough. Leiden tears Flint apart until his sand form turns to glass and shatters. The spider pulls Leiden off the ground and hurls him just as a train comes through. It connects. Leiden is gone. Kat holds Flint in the street. The spider places the last antidote in her hands, then disappears. At Silvermane's funeral, only Kat and Flint attend. Ben shows up. Flint thanks him. Kat tells Ben she loves Flint, but in another life she would have gone to Santorini with him. Ben tells her there is a difference between using someone and stringing them along once you have already set sail. She tells him to go to hell. They leave. The mayor wins re-election. Ben and Robbie watch from outside the office with drinks in hand. Robbie is launching his own paper, the Harlem Herald. Janet is becoming Ben's official partner. Ben steps out, snags his hat with a web, pulls the door shut, and the season ends. But that's where this video ends. Let me know what you think about this series, and as always, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you all in the next video.